many heads.
What's going on, guys? So we are underway with things. Just a quick little peek there. I don't want to give too much away, but time to bore you guys with some stories. I put it out there if anybody would be interested in hearing about like past cars and where my car stuff kind of began, and quite a few of you were interested. So I went through, I dug up as many pictures as I could, and I've got some stories to share. I'll pull up a chair, grab a cold one, and try to fall asleep. So it all started with a 93 Corsica. My dad had gotten it from an old lady that was parking in the garage. Didn't really get driven much. It was low miles, it was clean. It had the older 3.1, the multi-port MPFI one. And yeah, I drove that all through high school. Just took care of it. That's really where it all started. What happened first was the radiator, the side tank kind of blew out. And so I called upon help and had someone do it for me. And that ended up causing more problems. So I ended up replacing the whole cooling system from other various problems. And it's just, it really, right there is where it started with me just doing the work, because it just, at least I know if I mess up, it's my problem. I don't have to worry about someone else messing it up. On that car, I learned quite a bit, especially cooling systems, because I did everything. Radiator, water pump, heater core, all the lines, everything. That's where that started. Being an old car, it also needed a couple of like body things, so that's when I learned about junkyards. As far as modding it, I really didn't do anything. I stuck a cherry bomb, took the old muffler off, put a cherry bomb instead, so had a nice little growl, wasn't too bad. Did a lot of audio in it, video, had a bunch of different systems. You know, I started where some of you start with the old Pet Boys specials, or you know, your low end brands, and you work your way up. As you can see, I had JLs in there also. I did put underglow on it. That's where that started also. I went to the next car. It's really all there is with the Corsica. Being the first car, I really beat on it, and it survived. I put 60-something thousand miles on it in 3 years. What I ended up doing was I actually sold that private party to put a down payment towards my first Grand Am that we'll talk about next. The first Grand Am I owned was a white 02 sedan, and I got a ton of pictures of this thing from the day I bought it to the day I traded it off. So we got that, you know, took all my stuff from the Corsica, put it on there, kept going with the audio stuff. Tried different things. You know, this had the monsoon system, so I started tinkering with that and see what I can do with that. And this car, I really started like experimenting with things. So like I had put decals on like the headlights and the door trim. Tried painting the interior. Really experimented and just kept furthering, you know, what I knew about cars, and you know, maintained it, took care of it. Actually, right after I got it, the intake gasket had went. So I had gotten assistance. You know, I did it and had some help while doing it, because I didn't have all the tools at that point to do it or the space to. And that's when I learned about the plastic gaskets, because we changed it, and maybe a year or so later they went again, and I had to go through and I put metal gaskets in, and that car kept going from there on out. Never gave me another issue anyway. Had some bad luck. Had a few accidents with it. I put a SD hood on it. I bought a SCT spoiler, brand new back then. You know, this was before messing on Facebook groups. This is before even knowing there was a following. So everything I did to this car was literally just Google searches, Summit Racing, going down there and looking at things and thinking, oh hey, how can I make that work on my car? And you know, really just tried to be as handy as possible. I made my own intake for it. You know, I didn't know I had to build exhaust, because you know I couldn't find one back then that was bolt-on, which I ended up doing MagnaFlow. My first set of aftermarket wheels in that car. I ended up lowering that car, so I got the whole suspension set up. I bought Eibach springs brand new back then. Assembled them myself, threw them on the car, and that setup is actually the same one that's on my black car now. I had that car like I said, for about 3 years, 2013. Kind of got bored with it. Again, I didn't know what I could do with it. I wanted to find something that I could do something with and was a little easier to find parts for. So I ended up trading it off for an Eagle Talon, which should have been a red flag to someone who knew what an Eagle Talon was, but I really didn't know what it was. It looked cool. It sounded cool. It was turbo. The White Grand Am, again, I put probably double the miles on it. I think it was around 60 something when I bought it at the dealership, and then when I traded it off, it was like that 120, 130 mark again. It was a great car. Never left me stranded. I'd probably beat that one horribly too, and it took every bit of it outside of the typical intake gaskets failing. That's pretty much it for the white one. So before we stray off to the Talon, kind of bring up that I did buy a second Grand Am while having that white one. Someone my mom knew was going to scrap one, knew I had it, and he, I just wondered if I wanted parts off of it, for spares. And it was running and driving. So we gave him scrap price, and I fixed wheel bearings, gave it an oil change, and I drove it for about 3 years too. 3 seems to be the magic number. But yeah, so this happened about a couple years after I got the white car. I got this car too. So it was a 2000 SE, had the V6 in it. It had some 260,000 miles on it when I got a hold of it. And for what it was, there's a little bit of a transmission slip, but we took that thing on a bunch of parks runs across the state into other states, and it never once gave up on us. It was very rusty. There were holes in the floor, both sides, down the side, where the floorboard met the rockers there was like a gap. So if there was a lot of rain, it got the carpet wet. But it was a beater, so I didn't care. That's what I ended up trading to the dealership for my Trailblazer. It was like 299,000 miles when I pulled into the dealership with that thing, and they were quite amazed that it was still going. It was basically just a daily. Really didn't do anything to it. It just was just there. That's it for that. Let's backtrack to the Talon now. So the Talon, it was a 95 TSI. Obviously, it had the 4G63. It was a nightmare, and part of it was not my fault, and the other part was my fault. So this thing, when I got it, it was running and driving. The guy drove it over. We traded whatever he left. All was well. A few days later, we were going to take it out for a drive. I got a quarter mile down the road, and the motor ended up locking up on me. Long story short, it ended up being rod bearing. 2 rod bearings had completely disintegrated, and it wiped out everything else in the bottom end. Sat on the fence for a while. I ended up rebuilding it. When I had like listed it basically, because I was thinking about just getting rid of it and not worrying about it at all. The original owner of the car who built it got a hold of me, and we went back and forth, and turns out the guy I had gotten off of bought it from him with bad rod bearings and a bunch of aftermarket parts on the car. And it seems like this guy had bought it, stripped all the good parts, just threw bearings in it to get it running without a knock, and that's when I got it, and I got it right before it let go again. I tackled it. I found a bunch of other problems. You can see these pictures. I tore that thing down all the way because the more I kept tearing into it, the more problems I kept finding, and I was at a point I didn't want to give up. I just wanted to push through, and I wanted to see that thing driving again. In rebuilding, I had a fork in the road, and I took the wrong way. I reused the block. I had everything checked. I got a brand new crank. I got new rods. I got all new bearings. I had everything checked out, and I should have just got all brand new. So what ended up happening is ended up with Rod Doc again, and as soon as I found that out, I listed it, sold it real cheap, just got rid of it. I was done with it. I had it like almost exactly a year. Like I bought it in September and sold it in September, like almost to the day. In the year, I drove it for 2 months. But when it drove, it was actually pretty quick for what it was. Like a 16G turbo on it. Had the EEPROM ECU, had a little bit bigger injectors. It was a 5-speed. So I mean, it was a fun car for what it was, but I didn't want to keep having to go through that, and that just scared me doing it the second time, and I said I was done. So we sold that, and I ended up actually buying a 4-wheeler with some of that, and kind of hung out for about 6 months. And that's when we found the black car. So the original black car was actually a 2000, and got out of the Pittsburgh area, and when we got it, it was actually really clean. The story with that, and I'll keep this brief because this is kind of where the channel picks up. What even made us go look at this thing was the clear corners. So we went down, checked this thing out, and Brad, I believe, as soon as he walked up, pointed out that it had SLP tips. Get underneath of it, sure enough, it's got SLP exhaust. Guy also put like an intake on it, and I didn't find out at the time. Later that year, I was going to do a tune, and found out I already had a tune. I had a bad head gasket, so we ended up dropping a motor in it for pretty cheap, and I drove it and started modding from there. When I really dove in and really got involved with like the community, that's when I really started wanting to mod it. So I talked to Ben at Wotech, and he helped me put together a whole package, and I was going to do a nitrous cam build. Had everything there ready to go, and that's when I got the opportunity to buy all the turbo stuff along with the 6-speed stuff. And so I pulled the trigger, sold what I had, got what I needed instead, so I got a turbo cam instead of the cam I had. That's really where the channel kind of picks up, because I started with just kind of documenting what I was doing as I went, and just turned into this. It was 2018 is when I actually ended up swapping bodies to now the 01. So outside of that, outside of my fun cars, I mentioned with the silver Grand Am, I traded that in and got a Blazer. So that was a 2006 Trailblazer. Got a couple pictures of that. That was a great vehicle. That for about 4 years. Really, I would have kept it, but I had in the back of my mind that I eventually wanted a truck to haul my car if I wanted to. In browsing, got me in trouble. Found pretty much the truck 95% of if I wanted to go order a truck, what I wanted, just used. And so I ended up with my Silverado. So I traded the Trailblazer in for the Silverado, which is an 07 2500. It is a gasser, so lower maintenance, and I've been loving that thing. I drive it all, I drive it as a daily. Really, the main cars, of my history here, nothing too out of the ordinary. Except for one I do want to mention. It wasn't really mine, but back when my Corsica broke down, and I found one picture of it. My dad had gotten it for a beater, an A to B, I guess, for like dirt cheap. So I drove it to school a few times. I think an 85 Chevette. But as you see in the picture, it was baby blue. Under the hood, they like spray painted everything Barney purple. This thing was hilarious, but it did the job. That's where I end this one. If you watched all the way through, thanks for watching. If you watched any of it at all, thanks for watching. I promise we're going to get back to the live action here. I know that I'll have full videos of each car, but with how we're breaking stuff up, it might be kind of montages of each car as it progresses, because he's on his way with this one. I've put a little bit of work into Brad's Camaro, which will hopefully put some more work here soon. We're still waiting on to find a motor, and then my car I just kind of back burner. I'll get to it when I get to it, kind of thing. So there's really nothing crazy needs done to it. So I'd rather get the bigger projects done and worry about that come February, March. So probably won't see much of the boost the car. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.